Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm sitting at the beach in the suburb of Papamoa, which is part of the city of Tauranga. The beaches here probably the best and most popular in New Zealand, particularly during the holiday season. Probably upwards of about 10 to 15 kilometres of pristine beaches, swimming beaches, leading right up to Mount Maunganui, way further ahead on my left. This is an area of New Zealand that is generally known for its good sunny weather, even during the autumn and winter time periods. A lot of people tend to retire up this way as well for the weather. Mount Maunganui, unfortunately back I think in about January of this year, had a tragedy there where there's a camping spot below and a motor camp and tent spot below the mount, and a terrible storm hit the area. So it was torrential rain, and one morning there was a landslide and 6 people got buried in that landslide and unfortunately died. There was another 2 people in another part of the Tauranga area which died in another landslip at the time. So again, just things there that say that we never know when this physical incarnation may finish, and accidents happen. So it's really important to get on with life, not waiting for things to occur, because we just never know when the time will come when this physical incarnation finishes. Today I'm going to speak about a topic called darkness, and I do speak a lot about the light. But just before I get into that, I just wanted to quickly speak about the fact that I'm by the beach and the sea's out in front of me and the waves are crashing. And I saw an article this morning. It related to being around water and how scientists are doing some more research on being around water in nature, and how that they're turning that into this being like bringing upon a trance-like state for people, meditative state. And I've talked a lot about water being my happy place. I'm always drawn towards coastal areas of New Zealand or camping near water, and it just has such a positive impact upon me. This article I read spoke a lot about how it helps people get away from the distractions of life, everyday life. And really that's exactly what I talk about, the need to get away from the distractions of life, if possible get into what would probably be a meditative state, which again, trance-like state near the water. And it's in those states of being, the quieter times, where one can go inward. And just to really sum that side of life up, that is where the answers lay. Certainly from my experience, that's where the answers lay. The answers that I have received never ever came from outside of me. So all of the noise, distractions, things that I was doing in life, things that I thought I was constructively doing in life, and don't get me wrong, there's certainly a level of positivity of the activities that one does in life, but it's the stuff that takes your attention away from the important things of life. And I'll get back to the important things of life being stuff that we don't learn about necessarily in our day-to-day life, particularly in Western civilization. So I'm talking about the spiritual aspect of life. And it's only when I've had a chance to get on that journey and get on that path to investigate the spiritual side in a state of meditative quietness, many less distractions, that all of my insights, all of my ascension, all of my messages on what I should be following, the paths that are suggested to me hearing these messages, me trusting my intuition, following my heart, has led me to the place that I now am in. And anyone who's read any of my writings or looked at any of my prior videos know that I'm in a place where years ago I couldn't have believed it. And just another tie into being at Papamoa, in June of 2025, just prior to leaving on my first trip to Peru, I was listening to talkback radio in New Zealand, and I was listening to the most popular station called ZB, and I was listening to a lady called Kerry Woodham, and she takes talkback on many subjects, and she just started to talk about the subject of the New Zealand suicide rate. And she was also focusing on the people who perhaps are facing difficulties and thinking about suicide. And she asked for callers to ring in, and she wanted to hear from people who had perhaps been in that place and had now managed to get out of that, or get into a place where they were no longer suicidal, and how they did it. And I've never rung up talkback in my life, and I've never really spoken about such things, even though I do now. I was always very insular, but I knew that I had something to share. So I rang her and spoke to her for about 5 minutes. And I just talked to her about being able to come from the dark to the light. This is exactly what I've done. That there is hope, that everyone has to find their own path. And she asked me that when I was in the darkest place, which I was sort of referring to my 2016 experiences, as to whether I ever believed that there was a possibility I could find the light, get out of it. But I said to her, no, it was too dark. And while I had an inkling that there was options, and maybe the spiritual path that I finally got onto, I didn't believe that was for me. I thought that's what was for other people. I couldn't see how I could get onto it. But fortunately I did, and I worked out that it's for anyone. I talk about that a lot. We can all go from the dark to the light. So that was just me probably kicking off this mission that I'm on now, even though I didn't consciously know at the time that was exactly what I was going to do. But now I'm on a full-time mission to express the fact that I have come from the dark to the light, and that anyone can be their own guru. I'm not anyone else's guru, but they can dispel their darkness, and they can find the things that bring them light and move towards those things. And I'm just going to read a little quote from my blue book. The quote today is, "No man chooses evil because it is evil. He only mistakes it for happiness, the good he seeks." From a lady called Mary Wollstonecraft. And that just kind of means that if all we know is what we know and what we get involved in, like for example when I dived deep into my methamphetamine use in late 2016 because I believed that was going to bring me happiness, which I truly believe that that could be an outlet or a place where I would find the happiness because I was in a dark spot, and became pretty deeply entrenched in it. And if I hadn't got out of it, I would have continued looking for my happiness there. And on reflection, that's a mistake. There wasn't any happiness there. There was only darkness. But if I had stayed in it and not had the message or inclination to get out of it, that would have had a result, and the result would have been illness, unwellness, unhappiness, jail, death, all of those things. So I wanted to just talk about a little bit more about my darkness from my past. So looking at it really came from my conditioning. So I was brought up in a fairly insular family, fairly conservative. We weren't encouraged to socialise a lot, so that meant that I was a fairly lonely person, fairly lonely child, controlled to a level by my parents, just their worry about us trusting the wrong people. I know my father used to say a lot, don't trust anybody. And that in a way is kind of good advice, because people can have some really bad motives, particularly for a child. But it did restrict me for a long time in my life, and now I understand that we have to be able to trust people, but we have to be able to be in a position where we can choose the right people, choose the right situations, and that comes about from the development of one's own senses, one's own intuition, to be able to pick the right situations or the right people to trust. So growing up, my teenage years they weren't unhappy, but they kind of weren't happy either. And then as I got into my late teens and to my 20s, things went pretty dark. I mean, I suffered depression. It was a lack of ability to interact with others, my inability to form relationships, intimate relationships with females. There was 2 people at that stage that I was pretty much in love with, but it was not returned, unfortunately. So, you know, they were failures. And then even in the relationships which I had subsequent to that, sort of in my late 20s and then into my 30s, it was the other person who actually ended it. And it was because I was probably looking for happiness in the other person or from the other person. I wasn't looking for happiness from within. So I was looking to other people for my happiness. So through those times I experienced the ups and downs, the happiness that I thought I was getting from a relationship, but in the end it was darkness at times. I mean, and the end results of the relationships, which some didn't really even get very far and some that got far finished, it was darkness for me. It just threw me back into the depression, the darkness, and I was looking for assistance along the way from counselling and antidepressants and things like that. And then moving forward, I got into that stage where I'd kind of given up a bit on life, but then I had, when I got to the age of, about 39, I met this wonderful lady and we had a wonderful relationship. But of course, as I've spoken about and written about, that relationship then went into a kind of dark place as well, because she became ill, and the illness was a slow degenerative disease, which took some time to really take over, and in the end she got taken away from me in the sense that she could no longer live with me or no longer live independently, had to go into care for the rest of her life in 2016, and that threw me into the darkest of times. And it was at that stage that I faced what was probably known as the dark night of the soul, and Carl Jung again speaks a lot about this, and I went through it. It was the darkest of times. I descended as far as possible to a place where I was trying to destroy myself, not consciously but subconsciously. So that's the first part, the descent into it. I then stayed in the void, or had been kind of in the void anyway with my depression anyway. And that's where it's like, well, what's the point? And it's kind of in there that maybe one gets a little bit of insight, a little bit of inclination to try and find a way out, because otherwise it's going to destroy you. And so I got on a path, and I got to the stage where I then, probably the third stage of it was to go through the rebirth, so the ascent, the spiritual ascension. So effectively, one had to undergo the death of the ego. So all of those things that had caused me to get into the darkest place possible, and so that was all of my life experiences, all of my conditioning, all of the darkness had to go, and I had to get rid of that darkness. And as I've spoken about, I became my own guru. I became my dispeller of darkness. That's exactly what the guru means. I dispelled my darkness. I found the things that would bring me light. I found the experiences. I found the meditations. I found the need to go to Peru for a spiritual retreat. And that included ayahuasca. And that included Sabo. The most incredible experiences that showed me the light. So I've been very fortunate that both I faced darkness. It's so important, of course, that one faces darkness and faces the dark night of the soul. For in darkness, if one doesn't know what darkness is, one is not going to recognise and appreciate the light when it turns up. And I now fully embrace and appreciate the light that I found. I mean, it's just incredible. I have had a stupendous enlightenment, an illumination. It's exactly what it is. And as I've said many times, I'll be forever grateful that I've gone through that process. But I paid the cost. But the cost was worth it. And at the time it wasn't necessarily something that I could understand why I was paying the cost, but now it all makes sense. Because what I've got from it far outweighs the cost that I ever paid. So that's a little bit about darkness. Yes, it exists for most people. We all have to deal with our own darkness. If we don't deal with our darkness and head towards what I call the light, unfortunately it will become all-consuming, and it can destroy us or mean that we just don't live the path that we need to live to go through that karmic cycle that I talked about yesterday, to attain the highest possible ascension, the return to the spirit, the return to nirvana. And just as I go, when I was speaking to G.U.R.U, which I spoke about earlier in this video about just that, the suicidal topic, I sort of left it with this other quote, which I heard many years ago in a movie, kind of a nondescript movie, but the quote is, "Dying flying free is better than living in a cage." So that sums it up for me. I'm flying free, and I have no certainty of the adventure not causing me, I suppose, my demise, but I've got no concerns about that because I'm ready for it. But living in a cage was not living. Being free is living. So I thank you for listening to today's video. I wish you well for the rest of the day. I continue on my journeys and make further videos. As always, I ask you to enjoy the journey. We will meet when we should, and namaste.